I was already late by the time I walked into the restaurant. The evening had been a blur, a sudden rush to get ready, an overwhelming sense of dread creeping in with every passing minute. I had no idea what I was doing here. It was my 40th birthday, but it felt more like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. The hostess glanced up at me with a polite smile as she checked the reservation list. "Right this way," she said, leading me through a dimly lit corridor toward the back of the restaurant. My eyes scanned the tables as we passed, half expecting someone to call out to me, to stop me before I got too far. But no one did. When we finally arrived at my table, I stood frozen for a moment. The waiter's eyes flickered nervously between me and the empty seats around the table. It was set for 7, but only one chair was occupied, mine. Sir," the waiter started hesitantly. "I believe your party hasn't arrived yet." I nodded absently, swallowing the lump that had formed in my throat. Of course, they hadn't arrived. None of them had. Not my wife, not my friends, not even my brother. I was alone, sitting at a table meant for 7. I glanced around the restaurant, trying to force myself to smile, but the reality of the situation hit me harder than I could have imagined. The familiar sting of loneliness, the heavy emptiness of abandonment. It felt like a cruel joke, only no one was laughing. I had checked my phone before I left the house. No messages, no texts, no missed calls, nothing. I thought maybe they were running late, maybe something had come up, but now it seemed clear no one was coming. And the worst part? I hadn't even been told why. I wasn't angry at first. I wasn't upset. I just felt lost. The waiter left me to my thoughts, but I couldn't focus. My mind was racing in a dozen different directions. Was I crazy to think they would be here? Was I just being naive? I hadn't noticed how much time had passed until I heard the soft click of high heels against the floor. Someone was approaching. I turned in my seat, half expecting to see one of my friends, maybe even my wife, walking toward me. But instead, it was a woman I didn't recognize. She was in her late 20s, dark hair pulled into a tight bun, her eyes sharp and focused. She was holding a small envelope in her hand. "Excuse me," she said, stopping in front of my table. "Are you Mr. Reynolds?" I was taken aback. Yes," I replied, slowly. The woman set the envelope on the table in front of me. "This is for you. From Mrs. Reynolds," she said, her tone steady, but there was something in her voice that made my stomach turn. I stared at the envelope. My wife's name was scrawled on the front in what looked like a rushed, almost frantic handwriting. Something about it felt off. I didn't know why, but my heart started to beat a little faster. I reached for the envelope slowly, tearing it open with trembling fingers. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded neatly. I unfolded it and read the words out loud before I even realized I was doing so. "I'm sorry. I couldn't be there. I couldn't make it. Everything is falling apart. I love you. Please don't hate me." I stared at the message, my mind blank. The words didn't make sense. Everything is falling apart. What was she talking about? And why the sudden, cold apology? Before I could process anything, the woman who had delivered the envelope was gone, disappearing into the crowd of the restaurant, leaving me in complete confusion. My thoughts swirled around me, pulling me in every direction. Why was she apologizing? Why wasn't she here? My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. A text from my brother, the first message I had received all evening. "Dude, I'm sorry. I can't make it tonight. Something came up. Hope it's still a good one." The words were simple, casual, too casual. It was as though everything was normal, but everything was far from normal. The waiter came back, a look of hesitation on his face as he watched me, unsure of whether or not to say anything. But I couldn't look at him. I couldn't look at anyone. I was consumed by this gnawing feeling, the overwhelming certainty that something had gone horribly wrong. But what? I felt the sweat form on my palms. My phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from a number I didn't recognize. The words were brief, clipped. "You need to know the truth. She's not who you think she is. It's time you found out. Call me." I stared at the message in disbelief. My throat tightened as the words sank in, my mind struggling to process the meaning behind them. Who was this person? And what was I supposed to make of this cryptic message? I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room felt too small, too suffocating. I needed answers. I needed to understand what was happening. My hands shook as I dialed the unknown number, my heart pounding in my chest. The phone rang twice before someone picked up. The voice on the other end was low, barely above a whisper. Listen to me carefully. I don't have much time. She's been hiding things from you for a while now. But it's about to come crashing down, and you need to know the truth. I swallowed hard, my breath catching in my throat. What truth? I asked, barely able to get the words out. You don't want to know, but you're about to find out. I sat back down at the table, my mind spinning, struggling to make sense of the words I had just heard. My phone was still pressed to my ear, the faint sound of heavy breathing on the other end. The silence felt suffocating, and the person on the line hadn't said a word since their cryptic message. What truth? I repeated, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. I could feel my pulse racing, my heart pounding as if it were trying to escape my chest. Listen carefully, the voice said again, this time with a cold, almost detached tone. This isn't something you're going to want to hear, but it's the truth. Your wife, Eliza, has been living a double life. You think she's just distant, stressed out from work, but it's much worse than that. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. I had suspected something was wrong for months, but I didn't want to believe it. Not this. Not the woman I had married, the mother of my children, the person I thought I knew better than anyone. My grip on the phone tightened. What are you talking about? I demanded, my voice barely a whisper now. What's been going on? The voice on the other end seemed to hesitate, as if weighing whether or not to continue. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Eliza's been seeing someone else. Someone close to you. The words felt like a slap across my face, sharp and searing. My stomach twisted. I had hoped that whatever this was, it would be some mistake, some misunderstanding. But it was real, and it was worse than I had ever feared. Who? I choked out, the word barely leaving my lips. My throat felt dry, and my hands started shaking. Who is it? The person on the other end sighed, a sound filled with regret. I can't tell you yet, but I will. You need to meet me in person if you want the whole story. I can't do this over the phone. You won't believe me unless you see it for yourself. 1,000 questions flooded my mind. Who could it be? A colleague? A friend? Someone I had known for years? My own brother? The possibilities seemed endless, each more painful than the last. But I didn't have time to dwell on the questions. There was only one thing that mattered now. I had to know the truth. Where do we meet? I asked, my voice steadier now, though my insides felt like they were unraveling. Meet me at the old bridge by the river, the voice instructed. Tonight, at midnight. Come alone. I'll be waiting. And don't tell Eliza about this. Not yet. You'll only make things worse. I didn't hesitate. I'll be there, I said, before hanging up abruptly. The phone in my hand felt heavy, as if the weight of the conversation was still pressing down on me. My mind was racing. How could this be happening? How could Eliza do this to me, to us? We had a family. We had built a life together. This wasn't supposed to happen. But deep down, I knew something had been off for a while. Eliza had been distant, more than usual. Late nights at the office, sudden trips she couldn't explain, and the way she would always avoid eye contact when I asked her about her day. There were signs, little things I had ignored, dismissed as nothing more than stress or fatigue. But now, they were all adding up, and the picture they formed was one I wasn't ready to see. I looked around the empty restaurant again, my eyes lingering on the untouched seats. The waiter had come by once or twice, his expression sympathetic, but I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge him. I wasn't even sure if he knew what had happened. And truthfully, I didn't care. This wasn't about him or the empty chairs. This was about my life, my family, and the person I thought I could trust more than anyone else. I stood up from the table, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I had to leave. I couldn't sit there any longer, not with all the confusion and pain swirling inside me. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I walked quickly to the exit, ignoring the looks of pity from the other diners. The cool night air hit me like a slap in the face as I stepped outside. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but it didn't help. I had no idea what was waiting for me, but I knew one thing for sure. Nothing was ever going to be the same again. The drive to the bridge felt like an eternity. The city lights blurred as I sped through the streets, my thoughts a chaotic jumble of questions and fears. What if this person on the phone was lying? What if it was all a trap? But deep down, I knew I had to take the risk. I couldn't go on living in the dark. I had to confront whatever this was, even if it destroyed me. As I neared the bridge, the night seemed to close in around me. The trees along the riverbank were cast in shadow, their branches swaying gently in the wind. I slowed the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. I parked a little ways from the bridge and stepped out of the car, my breath visible in the cold night air. The silence was deafening. I walked cautiously toward the bridge, my footsteps echoing against the pavement. The place felt eerie, like something was waiting to happen, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And then I saw him. A figure stood at the far end of the bridge, shrouded in the darkness. I couldn't make out his face, but I could feel his eyes on me. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. The moment that would change everything. Are you here for the truth? The man's voice called out from the shadows. I took a shaky breath. There was no turning back now. Yes, I replied, my voice firm despite the fear that gripped me. Tell me everything. The man stepped forward, revealing his face in the dim light. And what he said next would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. The man stepped into the light, his face barely visible beneath the shadow of the bridge. For a split second, I thought I recognized him, but the darkness made it hard to be sure. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark coat that billowed slightly in the cold wind. He didn't look threatening, at least not at first, but there was something unsettling about his presence, something that made my skin crawl. My heart was beating so loudly I could barely hear the rush of the river beneath us. You're here for the truth, he repeated, his voice steady but laced with a sense of urgency, as if he knew I didn't have much time left before everything spiraled out of control. I nodded, swallowing hard. There was no going back. Tell me who she's been seeing, I said, my voice thick with emotion. My hands clenched into fists by my sides, ready for whatever bombshell he was about to drop. The man stared at me for a long moment, his eyes cold but intense, studying me as if assessing whether or not I was ready for what he had to say. I couldn't tell if it was a look of pity or disdain, but it made me feel small, like I was about to be swallowed whole by something I had no control over. Finally, he sighed, taking a slow step forward, closer to the edge of the bridge where the light from the nearby street lamp fell on his face. Your wife, Eliza, has been seeing your best friend, he said flatly, the words cutting through the night like a knife. My blood ran cold. I felt the world around me begin to blur, the river beneath me roaring in my ears as the weight of what he had just said crashed into me. My best friend? My brother in everything but blood? My mind raced to put the pieces together. Who could it be? Lucas. I knew it. The man took another step forward, his presence now even more overwhelming. It's Lucas, isn't it? I choked out, barely able to get the words past my clenched teeth. He didn't need to say anything. His silence confirmed everything. My throat tightened, my chest constricted as the pain of betrayal sank in deeper. Why? I rasped, unable to process the sheer weight of what had just been revealed. I had trusted Lucas with everything. We grew up together. He was there through the worst of times, the one person I thought I could always count on. And now this. My mind flashed back to the countless times I had shared a laugh with him, our families spending weekends together, Eliza and I celebrating milestones in life with him by our side. And yet, behind it all, this secret had been festering, poisoning everything. How long? I whispered, more to myself than to him. The man's face softened ever so slightly, but it wasn't enough to erase the cold detachment that clung to him. A few months, he said quietly. But it's been going on for longer than you realize. It's not just an affair. It's a full-blown relationship. The finality of his words hit me harder than I expected. A relationship. I shook my head, fighting to keep my composure. No, this isn't real. You're lying. You don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice rising in disbelief. But the man didn't flinch. He just stood there, watching me like someone who had seen this play out too many times to be moved by my denial. Lucas isn't the only one you should be angry at, the man said, his voice suddenly softer, almost pitying. But I'll give you one more piece of the puzzle, because you deserve the full truth. I felt my breath hitch in my chest. My mind scrambled to understand what he could possibly mean. What else could be worse than this? What could possibly add to the gut-wrenching betrayal I was already drowning in? The man took another step closer, and I instinctively took a step back. Your wife, he began slowly, his words laced with careful hesitation. She's been hiding something far more dangerous from you. And I'm not talking about Lucas. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I demanded, now desperate to understand. She's been involved with someone more powerful than you realize, he continued, his voice growing darker, almost warning. Someone with influence. Someone who can ruin you without even blinking. I felt a chill run down my spine as the weight of his words hung heavy in the air between us. Who? I asked, barely able to breathe as I stared at him, trying to process what he was telling me. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He handed it to me without a word. The paper was cold to the touch, the ink smudged slightly as if it had been handled too many times. I unfolded it slowly, almost afraid of what I might see. It was a name. Victor Coleman. I stared at the name, my mind struggling to place it. It was unfamiliar, completely foreign. I looked up at the man, my thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Who is this? I whispered, almost to myself. The man's eyes flickered, and for the first time since I had arrived, I saw a hint of something resembling regret. Victor Coleman, he said, his voice low, is someone who can make your life disappear with the snap of his fingers. He's more than just a businessman. He's dangerous, and Eliza's been involved with him. I don't know all the details, but I know this much. Whatever happens next, it's going to hurt. And not just you. Everyone you love. I stumbled backward, the world spinning as I tried to make sense of the chaos unfolding in front of me. Eliza, Lucas, Victor Coleman. The pieces were all falling into place, but they didn't fit. They didn't make any sense. What am I supposed to do? I asked, my voice breaking. What do I do now? The man gave me a long, hard look, and then turned away, his figure blending into the darkness. That's up to you, he said over his shoulder, his voice carrying a finality I couldn't ignore. But remember this, there are things far worse than betrayal. And the truth? It will always find a way to come out. He was gone before I could say another word. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the river below, my mind racing, my heart shattered. Eliza, Lucas, Victor Coleman. My world, once solid and safe, was unraveling right before my eyes, and I had no idea how to stop it. But one thing was certain. The truth was here now, and I couldn't turn back. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my mind numb with disbelief. The dark river below seemed to mock me, its rippling surface reflecting the cold, unfeeling night sky above. I glanced back at the spot where the man had been just moments ago. He was gone, leaving nothing behind but a sense of foreboding that clung to me like a second skin. Victor Coleman. The name echoed in my head, growing louder with every breath I took. Who was he? What kind of man could make someone like Eliza go to such extremes? And how was he connected to Lucas, my so-called best friend? A sick feeling churned in my stomach as I thought about everything I thought I knew. What if the man had been telling the truth? What if Eliza had truly been hiding things from me, not just from the past few months, but for much longer? The thought was suffocating. I pulled myself together, unwilling to let the flood of emotions take over completely. I couldn't break down now. Not here, not like this. But I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in my chest, either. The questions I had were only multiplying, and there were no answers in sight. I had to figure out who Victor Coleman was, and fast. My car seemed to have a mind of its own as I made my way back into the city. I wasn't even sure where I was going at this point. My body just seemed to move on autopilot, the shock from the bridge still reverberating through me. It was almost like the world around me had lost its color, like I was walking through a fog that I couldn't escape. Each streetlight I passed felt dimmer than the last, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly into the night. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I barely noticed the familiar side of my house. My eyes were locked on the front door, the place where Eliza and I had built our life together. The place I thought was a sanctuary. The place that was now tainted, corrupted by everything I had just learned. I sat there for a moment, staring at the door, trying to summon the courage to walk inside. What was I even going to say to her? How could I confront her about this without breaking everything I had ever known? My hands gripped the steering wheel as I tried to steady my breathing. The door opened, and there she was. Eliza. She stood in the doorway, her figure silhouetted by the warm light inside. She didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, there was an air of something. Was it guilt? Or was it relief? She hadn't been expecting me back this soon. I could tell. It wasn't like her to be awake at this hour unless something was off. I couldn't find my words at first. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The weight of the evening's events seemed to drain every ounce of energy from my body. Eliza, I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. She stepped forward, her face softening, the warmth of familiarity washing over her features. But it wasn't enough to mask the tension that lingered between us, thick and suffocating. Hey, I thought you'd be out longer, she said, trying to smile. But it didn't reach her eyes. Is everything okay? Her words felt like a slap in the face. Is everything okay? Of course, everything wasn't okay. Not after what I had just learned. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice rough with emotion. She blinked, clearly confused. I could see her posture stiffen slightly, like she was bracing for something she didn't understand. Tell you what? She asked, though I could already tell by the look in her eyes that she knew exactly what I was talking about. I stepped forward, ignoring the pounding in my chest. About you and Lucas. About what's been going on behind my back. The silence that followed felt suffocating, each second stretching longer than the last. Eliza didn't respond right away. She didn't even try to explain herself. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the slight tightening of her jaw, like she was searching for the right words, but nothing came. Lucas, she finally whispered, as though she couldn't quite believe it. You spoke to him? I shook my head. No, but I spoke to someone who knows everything. Someone who told me the truth. I didn't want to mention the man from the bridge. I didn't want her to know that this was bigger than just an affair, that there was something darker at play here. But the truth had already started to leak out, and there was no going back. Eliza's eyes flickered, her expression shifting from shock to guilt, and then quickly back to deflection. She crossed her arms, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. I never meant for you to find out like this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to hurt you. You've already hurt me, I replied, the words coming out harsher than I intended. My heart felt like it was about to break, but I couldn't hold back. How could you do this to me, to us? To our family? She flinched, her face tightening as if she was physically pained by my words. But she didn't apologize. She didn't try to explain herself. Instead, she looked away, the weight of the silence between us growing heavier by the second. I never wanted it to go this far, she finally said, her voice small, almost defeated. But things changed, and I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to tell you. I stared at her, my mind a whirl of confusion and rage. What's going on, Eliza? Who is Victor Coleman? The name had escaped my lips before I could stop myself. But the moment I said it, I could see the change in her face, like I had hit a nerve. Her eyes widened just slightly, and her entire demeanor shifted. She turned away quickly, avoiding my gaze. I don't know who told you that name, but you need to forget it, she said, her voice sharp, almost defensive. Please, just let it go. I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. My entire world felt like it was falling apart, and the woman standing in front of me was asking me to pretend like everything was fine. No, I said, my voice firm. I can't let it go. Not anymore. The truth was out there, I knew that. But I also knew one thing. There was a lot more to this story. I wasn't going to stop until I uncovered everything, no matter how deep I had to dig. And now, I had to face the consequences of everything I had learned. I had just started to unravel a nightmare, and I wasn't sure if I could survive it. The silence between us felt like a living thing, suffocating, pressing down on me with every breath I took. Eliza stood there, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her posture rigid, like she was bracing herself for something far worse than what we had already said. Her eyes flickered to the door, like she wanted to escape, to run, but she couldn't. She couldn't run from this, from me. Not anymore. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, every beat louder than the last. My mind kept going back to Victor Coleman, the name that was haunting me now. Forget it. Eliza's words echoed in my head. She wanted me to let it go, but how could I? How could I just pretend nothing was wrong when everything had changed? When my entire world had been shattered by a secret I never saw coming? I wasn't going to stop now. I couldn't. Tell me the truth, Eliza, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Who is Victor Coleman? Why is he involved in all of this? Her eyes widened for a split second, then quickly darted away, avoiding my gaze. A nervous laugh escaped her lips, but it wasn't genuine. It was empty, hollow. You don't understand, she said quietly, almost to herself. This isn't something you can just fix with a few words. It's bigger than both of us. I took a step closer, the anger and frustration boiling over, but I kept my voice controlled. Then explain it to me. Because right now, all I know is that you've been lying to me. I'm being played like a fool, and I can't stand it. Her eyes finally met mine, and there was something in her expression, something I had never seen before. It was a mixture of guilt, fear, and something else. Regret, maybe? I wasn't sure. But I knew this conversation was about to take a dark turn. He's not someone I can just explain to you, she said slowly, her voice cracking slightly. He's dangerous, Marcus. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. The use of my name, in that moment, felt like a final blow. She wasn't just my wife anymore. She wasn't just Eliza, the woman I had built a life with. She was someone else. A stranger, hiding secrets from me, and I had no idea who she really was. Then tell me, I said, my voice growing louder, almost desperate. Tell me everything. You owe me that much. She shook her head, taking a step back, like she was retreating into herself. I didn't want this for us, Marcus. I never did. But when you get involved with people like Victor, when you owe them things, it's not just a matter of walking away. It's not that simple. The words didn't make sense. My head was spinning, and I felt like I was about to collapse under the weight of it all. Owe them things, I repeated, trying to make sense of the sentence. What are you talking about? What kind of people are you involved with? Her breath hitched, her eyes clouding over. It's not what you think, she said quickly, shaking her head again. It's complicated. I never meant for things to get out of hand. I never meant to hurt you. I could feel the walls closing in, the air around me growing heavier. This was it. The truth was coming out, slowly but surely, and every word she spoke only made everything more twisted, more impossible to understand. I had known for a while that something was off, but this was something far darker than I ever imagined. What exactly did you get involved in, Eliza? I demanded, stepping closer, refusing to let her hide behind excuses any longer. What have you done? Her eyes filled with tears, but there was no softness in them, no sympathy. Victor, he's not just a businessman. He runs a network, a very powerful one, and I got involved with him years ago. I didn't know what it was at first, but when things started spiraling out of control, when I couldn't walk away, it was too late. A chill ran down my spine. The pieces of this horrific puzzle finally starting to form into something I could almost see. You're telling me you've been involved with some criminal organization? Is that it? I could barely keep the disbelief out of my voice. You've been lying to me, to our kids, for years, all because of some criminal network. Her face paled as if my words had hit her harder than anything before. I never wanted it to be this way, she said softly. But when Victor asked for help, I didn't have a choice. He knew everything about me, about us. I thought I could control it, keep it under wraps, but things got out of hand. Control it, I repeated, my voice barely a whisper, as if the weight of her confession had rendered me incapable of speaking any louder. You've been living a lie, Eliza, and you brought me into it. You dragged me into this world, without even telling me. Tears finally welled up in her eyes, and she reached up to wipe them away, but it was too late. The damage was done. She had told me everything. The betrayal was clear now, more so than ever. But there was still one question I couldn't answer. Why? Why, Eliza? I asked, my voice breaking with the rawness of the pain I was feeling. Why did you keep this from me? Why didn't you tell me sooner? She lowered her head, her hands trembling. Because I didn't want to drag you into this nightmare. I didn't want to destroy everything we had. I wanted to protect you from it. I thought I could handle it on my own. I stood there in stunned silence. The woman I had shared my life with had been hiding this secret, this darkness, for so long. And now it was too late. I couldn't unhear the truth. I couldn't erase the words she had just spoken from my mind. But even as I stood there, trying to comprehend the enormity of it all, there was something else gnawing at me. Something deeper than just the betrayal of Eliza and Lucas. Victor Coleman, the man who had tied them together in ways I couldn't fully understand, but was now pulling me deeper into this mess. I knew, right then, that I couldn't walk away from this. I couldn't just forget it. Not until I had answers, and not until I had justice. Eliza may have kept her secrets from me, but the truth had a way of coming out. And now, it was up to me to figure out how to make sense of it all. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed to find out more about Victor Coleman. And the only way I could do that was to confront him directly. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in the dark. The weight of everything that had just been laid bare between Eliza and me hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear down the walls she had built around her secrets, to expose everything for what it truly was. But instead, I stood frozen in place, unable to move, unable to process it all. Her admission, her confession, had shattered something inside me that I wasn't sure I could ever rebuild. She had lied to me. She had kept her world hidden, pulling me into it without my knowledge, without my consent. And worse still, she had brought Lucas into it. My best friend. I couldn't even wrap my head around the idea of what that meant. Eliza's tears glistened in the dim light, but they didn't reach me the way they once would have. She was a stranger to me now, a person who had kept the truth from me for so long that I didn't even know where to begin. I had trusted her with everything, and now I realized just how little I truly knew about the woman I had married. She took a step toward me, her voice soft, desperate. "Marcus, please. I know I've made mistakes, but I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe that." But I couldn't believe her anymore. The words felt hollow, empty. I had heard the apology, but it wasn't enough to erase what she had done, what we had become. "You've been lying to me for years," I said, my voice hoarse with a mix of disbelief and anger. "You and Lucas. How long has this been going on? How long have you been lying to my face?" Eliza closed her eyes, as if the very mention of Lucas's name pained her. "It wasn't like that," she said quietly. "It wasn't. I never wanted it to go this far. But I got caught up in something that I couldn't control. I thought I could fix it, but it just got worse. And Lucas, he helped me." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "He helped you?" I repeated, incredulous. "He helped you betray me? He's been lying to me too?" "Eliza, you don't understand," she continued, her voice cracking. "Victor isn't just some business associate. He's dangerous, Marcus. He has connections everywhere, and I got caught in his web. And when I tried to pull away, he threatened everything. Our family, my life, everything. I didn't know what else to do." The pieces were starting to fall into place, but they didn't make the picture any clearer. How could I have missed all of this? How could I have not seen what was happening right in front of my eyes? My mind raced, trying to put the puzzle together, but it only left me more confused. "So what? You got involved with him because he's powerful? Because you thought you could control it? Is that it?" I asked, my voice sharp with bitterness. "You dragged me into your mess, Eliza. You dragged me into this. I never had a choice in any of this." Her face twisted with pain, and she reached out toward me, but I stepped back, the distance between us growing wider with every word she spoke. "I never wanted this to happen. I thought I could make it all go away. But it's too late now, Marcus. You have to understand. Victor has his hands in everything. The people he knows, the people he controls. It's not just about you and me anymore. It's bigger than that. It's about our safety. It's about our future." I shook my head, my chest tightening. "And Lucas? What does he have to do with all of this? Why was he involved?" Eliza looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Lucas didn't want to be involved, but he couldn't get out either. Not once Victor had him in his sights. My mind was spinning, my thoughts a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and betrayal. I tried to push it all aside, tried to think rationally, but it was hard when the foundation of my entire life had just been ripped from beneath me. I felt like I was drowning in lies, in secrets, and in things that were too dark to fully comprehend. "I need to know everything, Eliza," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. "I need to understand why all of this happened. I can't keep living in the dark, pretending like none of this is real." She hesitated for a long moment, like she was weighing her words carefully, before she spoke again, her voice quieter now. "It started years ago, Marcus. Before we even met. Victor Coleman. He's been involved in a lot of illegal activity. But not just that. He controls people. He owns them. I got involved with him through business deals at first, and it seemed harmless. But I quickly realized I was in over my head. And then I got pregnant with our first child. I thought it would change everything. I thought it would stop. But it didn't." I felt the air leave my lungs as her words sank in. "I got involved with him before we even met." That sentence reverberated in my mind like a warning bell. Everything I thought I knew about her, the woman I had built a life with, the woman who had carried our children, was now tainted with a past I had never been a part of. And then Lucas, she continued, her voice barely audible. He knew about Victor. I didn't want him to know, but he figured it out. And he tried to help me get out of it. But Victor doesn't let people go. Not when he's in control. I was shaking now, the weight of everything crashing down on me. So Lucas knew all along. He was helping you? I asked, disbelief creeping into my voice. He knew about Victor and still decided to get involved with you? Eliza nodded, her eyes filled with regret. Lucas tried to protect me, but Victor doesn't work like that. You can't just walk away from someone like him. I thought I could. I thought I could get away clean, but everything just kept spiraling. I didn't know who to turn to. And then the affair with Lucas happened. It wasn't planned, Marcus. It wasn't something either of us wanted, but we were both lost. And Victor knew. He always knew. The revelation was too much to handle, too much for my mind to process. Victor had orchestrated everything. The affair, the lies, the manipulation. And now, I had no choice but to confront it all, head on. And now what? I asked, my voice hardening. What do I do now, Eliza? What do we do? Her face was a picture of helplessness, and for the first time since I had met her, she looked like she didn't have all the answers. I don't know, she whispered. But I do know one thing. Victor won't stop, and he'll come for you. For us. For everyone. Her words sent a chill through my veins. I had known, deep down, that this wasn't just a matter of a simple affair or a broken trust. This was something far darker, something far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. And now I had to face it head on. As I turned away from her, my mind made up, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let Victor Coleman destroy everything I had worked for. I didn't know how, but I had to take back control, whatever it took. And it was going to cost me more than I could ever anticipate. The moment Eliza's words faded into the cold night air, the weight of everything around me intensified. I couldn't hear anything anymore, just the overwhelming thrum of blood rushing through my ears. It was as if the world had gone silent, leaving me alone in this terrifying abyss of betrayal. The man I had called my best friend, the woman I had loved for years, and the shadowy figure of Victor Coleman, weaving his way through everything, pulling strings from the darkness. I felt as though I had been blindsided, thrown into a world I didn't belong in, one where I had no control. I couldn't look at her anymore, not like this. Eliza stood there, her tear-filled eyes pleading for understanding, for forgiveness, but how could I possibly give that to her? How could I give her anything but anger and heartbreak when everything she'd done had turned my life into a nightmare? I turned away, my legs carrying me toward the door before I even realized I was moving. Marcus, please. Eliza's voice broke through the haze of my thoughts. I could feel her eyes on my back, but I couldn't bring myself to face her. I never meant for this to happen. You have to believe me. I didn't respond. I didn't have the words, and even if I did, I wasn't sure I'd trust them. My mind was already spinning, already plotting my next move. The man who had hurt me most wasn't Lucas, or even Eliza. It was Victor. He was the puppet master behind it all, and I needed to find him. I stepped outside, into the night, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. The city lights seemed too bright, too indifferent to the storm raging inside me. I walked to my car with purpose, my mind churning over the conversation I had just had with Eliza. She had admitted to everything. She had betrayed me with my best friend, gotten involved with a man who could destroy everything we had, and all of it had been kept hidden from me. I was drowning in the realization that everything I thought I knew about my life had been a lie. But I couldn't let myself get lost in the anger. I couldn't let this consume me. I had to focus on what came next. I had to get answers. I had to find Victor Coleman. I drove through the city, each streetlight flashing by like a blur, my hands gripping the steering wheel as though it was the only thing keeping me grounded. My phone sat on the passenger seat, taunting me. I should call Lucas. I should demand answers from him. But even as the thought crossed my mind, I knew I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to see this through myself. I had to find Victor. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where Victor even was, but I had to try. There had to be a way to track him down. And if I couldn't find him, I could always take matters into my own hands. If anyone was going to fix this, it had to be me. As I drove, I found myself heading toward the outskirts of the city. I wasn't sure why. It wasn't a place I usually went. But something inside me told me this was where I needed to be. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. The city was starting to thin out, the buildings growing more sparse as I passed through darkened streets. The hum of traffic was fading away, leaving behind a strange, eerie silence. I turned a corner, and there it was, an old, abandoned warehouse. The kind of place you'd see in movies. Dilapidated, forgotten by the rest of the world. But not forgotten by me. The place felt wrong. But it also felt like the answer I'd been searching for. I didn't know why, but I could feel Victor's presence here, lurking just beyond the peeling walls. I parked a few blocks away, out of sight, and crept closer on foot. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I approached, the silence around me growing thicker with every step. My mind was racing with possibilities, each one darker than the last. I reached the entrance, a large steel door that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. I could see a small crack of light peeking through the edges, but it wasn't much. I reached for the handle, only to stop myself. What if this was a trap? What if I was walking straight into Victor's hands? But I didn't care. I couldn't care. I had already lost everything that mattered. My life, my marriage, my trust in the people closest to me. If I didn't do something now, I would lose everything. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. And then I pushed open the door. The inside of the warehouse was dark, almost pitch black. The air smelled stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. I stepped inside slowly, my footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. My eyes adjusted to the dim light, and I could just make out the faint outlines of crates stacked against the walls. This place had been abandoned for a long time, but it felt alive with a sense of foreboding. I was walking on the edge now, unsure of how deep I was willing to go. My mind was a swirl of emotions. Anger, confusion, fear, but all I could focus on was finding Victor. He had to be here. I didn't know how or why, but I was sure of it. I moved further into the warehouse, my senses on high alert. Every shadow, every creak of the floor beneath my feet, made my heart race faster. I couldn't afford to let my guard down. Not with someone like Victor Coleman out there. I had no idea who or what he truly was, but I knew one thing for sure. He had to pay for what he'd done. And then, from the far corner of the warehouse, I heard a sound, a rustle, a shuffle. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Someone was here. It had to be him. I slowly crept toward the noise, my pulse pounding in my ears. And then I saw him. Victor Coleman. He was standing in the shadows, barely visible, but his presence was undeniable. The moment I saw him, I felt a rush of adrenaline flood my veins. Everything inside me screamed to confront him, to demand answers, to make him pay for what he had done. But I held myself back, waiting. Looking for me? Victor's voice cut through the silence, smooth and taunting. I've been expecting you. Everything inside me snapped. What have you done to my life? I spat, my voice raw with fury. What have you done to my family? Victor took a step forward, his silhouette slowly becoming clearer in the dim light. He smiled, a cold, calculating smile that sent a shiver down my spine. You think you can just walk in here and make demands, Marcus? You think you can fix this with a few words? You've already lost. His voice was calm, controlled, and it infuriated me even more. He wasn't afraid. He didn't see me as a threat. But I wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not after everything. I'm not leaving until I get the answers I deserve, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Victor chuckled darkly. I didn't think you'd give up so easily. But now that you're here, let's see how much you're really willing to lose. And in that moment, I realized just how far I had already fallen. There was no going back. The only way out now was to face Victor and whatever darkness he held, in the most brutal way possible. Victor stepped closer, his movements smooth and deliberate, as if he were used to being in control. His cold smile never wavered, and the air around us seemed to grow heavier with every step he took. I stood my ground, fists clenched at my sides, my heart racing, but I couldn't let fear take over. I had come this far, and I wasn't going to back down now. I don't care what kind of power you think you have, I said, my voice sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. You've destroyed everything, Victor. You've ruined my family, my trust, my life. And now, it's time for you to answer for it. Victor stopped a few feet away, studying me with that cold, calculating gaze. He seemed almost amused by my anger, as if he were used to people trying to confront him, to break him down. But there was something in his eyes that made me realize he wasn't invincible. He was just a man, hiding behind his power, manipulating people to get what he wanted. "You think you can just waltz in here and take it all back?" he asked, his voice laced with amusement. "You've already lost, Marcus. Your wife, your best friend, they're both mine now. You're nothing." His words stung, but they also fueled the fire inside me. I wasn't going to let him break me. Not after everything I had gone through. Not after everything he had taken from me. "I'm not nothing," I said, stepping forward. "I may have lost some things, but I still have control over my life. I still have power, and I'm not going to let you destroy what's left of it." For a moment, Victor seemed taken aback by my resolve. His smile faltered, just for a second, but then he laughed, the sound low and mocking. "You're brave, I'll give you that. But bravery doesn't change the facts. You're too far in. You can't walk away from this." I could feel the anger inside me, bubbling to the surface, but I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I knew that lashing out wouldn't work. What I needed was to outsmart him. I needed to show him that I wasn't just some pawn in his game. "I'm not walking away," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm not playing by your rules anymore, either. I've had enough of your games, Victor. I'm taking back control." Victor's expression darkened, but before he could say another word, I took out my phone and dialed the number I had been avoiding all night, Eliza's father. I knew I needed help, and I knew that the only way to defeat someone like Victor was with the right support. The phone rang twice before it picked up. "Marcus." Eliza's father's voice crackled through the line. "Is everything okay?" I could hear the concern in his voice, but I wasn't sure how to explain everything that had happened. The weight of it all felt too much, but I knew I needed to take action now. "Victor Coleman," I said quickly, not wasting any time. "I found him. He's here, in this warehouse. I need your help. I can't take him on alone." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the rustling of papers. Then his voice returned, calm but urgent. "Stay where you are, Marcus. I'm sending people to help you. Don't engage with him any further. We'll handle this." I hung up, my heart pounding in my chest. I had made the right call. With Eliza's father and his connections, we could finally put an end to this nightmare. Victor watched me, his lips curling into a sneer, but I stood tall, unwavering. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't afraid. I knew that with the right people behind me, we could beat this. We could take back what was ours. Minutes later, the sound of sirens in the distance grew louder, and Victor's expression shifted from confident to wary. He could sense the change in the air. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about justice. "You think you've won?" Victor spat, taking a step back, his arrogance fading for the first time. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "I think I do," I replied, my voice firm, my resolve stronger than ever. "And you're about to learn just how far I'm willing to go to protect what matters." As the sirens grew closer, I could see the fear in Victor's eyes. He knew his time was running out. His empire, built on lies and manipulation, was about to come crashing down. In the end, it wasn't Victor's power that mattered. It wasn't the web of lies he had spun around me and my family. What mattered was the strength of truth, the power of standing up for what was right, no matter how impossible it seemed. When the police arrived, Victor didn't put up a fight. He knew his game was over. The officers moved in swiftly, and within moments, he was handcuffed, his cold smile replaced by a look of defeat. As I watched him being led away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. The nightmare was finally over. Eliza's secrets were exposed, but now there was a chance for us to rebuild. I wasn't sure where we would go from here, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let the past define me. When I finally turned back to Eliza, standing in the doorway of the warehouse, her eyes filled with tears, I didn't know what to say. But I didn't need to. The silence between us spoke volumes. We had both been through hell, but there was hope now. "We have a long way to go," I said softly, my voice steady. Eliza nodded, her tears falling freely now. "I know, but we can do it, Marcus. We can rebuild." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. The road ahead would be difficult, but it was ours to walk. Together.